Hello and welcome back. Today, we are going to be picking every single Week 2 college football game. If your team plays in Week 2, we're going to pick it right here in this video, just like we did with Week 1. So if you want to go watch that video's on the channel. It's the last one I posted, picking every single Week 1 game, so you can see what the results were and how we did in Week 1. But here, we look forward to Week 2. A lot less fluff in this week, a lot less FCS matchups, a lot more teams playing other FBS teams, which is what you want to see. And there's some good games. It doesn't have quite the headliners that last week had, like Texas-Michigan is big, but outside of that, it falls off pretty quickly. Last week had the Notre Dame-Texas A&M game, the LSU-USC, and the Georgia-Clemson, but still a high-quality week, and I think just a little bit deeper in terms of the total amount of games. So it really just depends on what you like, but we will just get into it. We've got Western Illinois traveling to play Indiana on Friday. There's actually 3 Friday games. There's this one, BYU, SMU, and Duke Northwestern. Going to get this video out on a Thursday so we can have these out just before these games. Western Illinois is a terrible FCS school. They did not win a game last season, and they got absolutely flattened by NIU to start this season. And so now their second FBS game, the Leathernecks, going to get squashed. And Indiana going to get a chance to start the season 2-0 there with a victory over Western Illinois. We got BYU at SMU. Now, SMU is a team a lot of people were high on this offseason because of that easier schedule, and it's looking a little easier. One of SMU's tougher games, and arguably their toughest, was the Florida State game. Florida State doesn't look very good anymore, so interesting cross-conference matchup between SMU and BYU. I just don't know how much faith I have in BYU to go on the road and get the job done here. However, if BYU was actually serious about improving their line of scrimmage play, maybe we can see them come out and shock some people, get a win over SMU here, and do some of the things that Nevada was able to do against SMU and push them to the limit. You got Duke versus Northwestern. It's the Nerd Bowl. Just a bunch of nerds on both of these squads. Northwestern, shout out to them getting that win over Miami of Ohio. That defense looking really good. Offensively, though, a lot of questions. Duke is a team that I still have a lot of questions about as well. As the home team, Northwestern, coming off an 8-win season, because they were able to survive a test against Miami of Ohio, I actually think Northwestern gets another win here to start 2-0, which would be a big victory for them. I actually think that they can get the job done, which takes us to the Saturday games. We start with Sacramento State at Fresno State. This one's a little spooky if you're Fresno State, but we did just watch San Jose State clutch up and get a really high-quality win over this Sacramento State team. So I think Fresno State operating in a similar tier. We saw them test Michigan for a little bit, and that might just be Michigan's offense still figuring it out, but still an impressive performance. So I'm going to pick Fresno State pretty comfortably in that one. We've got Army at FAU. FAU is a team that I don't really have. I'm not as high on them this season, but Army, very well coached. I think Monken and his squad can be prepared with an American Conference schedule to go in and do this. They had one of the toughest schedules of the non-power conference teams last year. And so these are the types of games that I think Army's going to really thrive in. I was trying to remember what FAU did in their opening week game. It has to have been a game against, maybe it was, did they play Michigan State and take Michigan State close? They did. I kind of forgot about that, which is kind of impressive. But I'm still going to rock with Army. I think Monken and company can go get a W there. We've got Arkansas at Oklahoma State. Cowboys, I think, at home, going to get the job done. I'm really impressed by what they did against South Dakota State. They really handled them. And so I just don't think Arkansas is going to be able to show up and pull off a shocker here. We'll see. Taylor Green, I thought, did look pretty good last week. But I just don't trust the Hogs. I don't trust their situation. I think there's just a lot of toxicity around that program, and I think a loss like this, you'll start to see that pile up. Bowling Green's a really good MAC team. They're a really fun team. Scott Loeffler's squad, they got a win over a Power 5 team last year, but Penn State is winning this one. I regrettably picked West Virginia last week. That's not going to happen again. I might not pick against Penn State again because that offense is explosive now, and they look really good. And so I trust them. I trust what Andy Kotelnicki is doing. I had them 5th in my preseason rankings, and yet for some reason I started drinking the Mountaineers Kool-Aid because there was so much momentum and people picking them. It's just one of those things where the whole offseason you tell yourself Penn State's going to be really good. Penn State's going to be really good. And then push comes to shove, and I don't pick them for some reason. So I'm rocking with them. Rutgers at home against Akron. It'll be interesting. If Akron can keep it close versus Rutgers and actually test them, then maybe there was some validity to Ohio State's slow start. Maybe Akron has an actual good team this year. And if they do that against Rutgers, we'll definitely see something. And I think Greg Schiano's squad going to get an easy W here to start the season 2-0 as well. This one is pretty fun. We got, in fact, 3 in a row that I think are all bangers. Georgia Tech at Syracuse. It's a big ACC battle. Georgia Tech, the signature win over Florida State, not looking too signature anymore. They're going to be a top 25 team. They got 23rd in the AP poll, I believe. And they're 3-point favorites at Syracuse. I thought Kyle McCord looked great last week. Syracuse surrendered some points versus Ohio, but I actually am pretty high on the Orange, and I think that Fran Brown can get his first conference victory as a head coach against Georgia Tech, and I really have a lot of faith in Syracuse in this one. I think they can win as dogs. We got Kansas State traveling to play against Tulane here. This one, excuse me, I think Kansas State could be in some trouble here. And John Summerall coach teams are so excellent, and it is just such a spooky game. I think a 9.5-point spread. I really liked how Tulane looked against their FCS opponent, but I do think Kleiman, I always call him Kleiman, is going to have his squad in a good spot and get a victory at Tulane. But I have flirted with picking that upset win, and I'm definitely going to put it on upset alert on the upset meter. We've got Pitt at Cincinnati. Of course, Cincinnati got the road victory at Pitt last year that made it look like they were going to be a pretty decent squad near the beginning of last season. And then Pitt, Pat Narduzzi, needing a win. They need some momentum to hold on to. But I actually trust Cincinnati. Cincinnati's got some really good playmakers, and I actually think they can get off to a hot start and actually be competitive and maybe push for a bowl game in Big 12 play this season. I think they can step up there. UConn over Merrimack, I think, is a surefire bet. UConn get right at home, and that'll be nice for them to recover after that opening loss. We got Texas at Michigan. This is the headliner, the biggest game of the week, and I am so confident in Texas in this game. Watching what they did in the same week against Alabama last season, they're just very prepared. Steve Sarkisian is a great coach. I think they're going to come out. I think they're going to trounce Michigan. I think they're going to win by multiple scores. And the Wolverines, offensively, they're just too many concerning things. And even if they do make a switch at quarterback midway through the game or whatever, I think that's just cause for more turmoil. I just don't think Michigan is ready for a game like this. Maybe they will be. They'll definitely have a long runway to get ready for another game like this until they play Oregon later in the season if they do lose this game to Texas. But I just don't have a lot of faith in Michigan in a game like this early in the season. Rhode Island at Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, a team coming off of a loss, should be able to recover here. Don't like Rhode Island's chances at pulling a crazy upset. Although we did not get the FCS over Power 5 upset that we thought could happen last week because it's happened every single season since 2009. Texas Tech, however, almost fell to Abilene Christian, so we'll just keep an eye on that in some of these games. Troy, I was trying to tell everyone all offseason, Troy is a much different team without John Summerall as their coach, and with all that they lost, people didn't want to listen. Troy loses to Nevada, and here we are now. And we've got Memphis playing host to Troy, and I think Memphis is going to win. I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the group of 5, and I think they're going to get an easy win over a Troy team that clearly is not as good as they were last season. Texas A&M against McNeese State. Aggies should be an easy victory at home. Missouri State at Ball State. Interesting one. I could flirt with taking Missouri State here, but we'll show some respect to Ball State and give them the nod here in this Week 2 matchup. And my goodness, Tennessee Tech is about to get blasted against Georgia. I hope that paycheck is worth it. St. Francis at Kent State. I actually really liked the energy that Kent State came out with in their game against Pitt. So I'm going to pick Kent State here to win against St. Francis. There were actually, I believe there's only been one FCS over even an FBS team upset so far, and that was the Montana State win over New Mexico, who they were actually favored against. So technically there hasn't been a single FCS upset by the literal term, but there has been an FCS over FBS win. UNLV plays host to Utah Tech. Utah Tech just got blasted by Montana State last week at home, so don't expect them to give Barry Odom's squad much trouble, especially Barry Odom's squad winning at Houston impressively last week. They should be fine at home here, getting another win. We've got Cal at Auburn, which is another one that is a pretty intriguing game. I do think Cal's going to have a shot in this one. They're 2 touchdown underdogs. I would definitely take Cal plus 13. I think they'll compete and keep it close. But give me Auburn to get the home win. Just find some way to push the margins in their favor. Shout out to Fernando Mendoza. I hope Cal can go pull this upset because that would be super awesome and super fun. This one's interesting. Duquesne at Boston College. Boston College obviously going to be riding high after their win over Florida State, but I wasn't particularly impressed by the Eagles at all. It was more Florida State just flopping on their face. And so when I look at a game like this, it could be a trap game. Duquesne is a good FCS team. Boston College could get caught lacking, but I'll pick them. Notre Dame host to NIU. NIU, like I said, had an impressive victory over Western Illinois last week, but that is a team that did not win a game last season. Notre Dame is a very impressive win at Texas A&M. Don't anticipate any issues, but look for Marcus Freeman to have his guys locked in. He knows that this game can be losable because of his own experiences, losing a game like this to, I believe who was it? It was Marshall that one season. So you betcha he'll have the boys locked in for that one. We got Temple at Navy. Look for Navy to get a victory here at home. Looking for Brian Newberry to get his guys and rally against a Sandrayton Temple team at home. South Carolina at Kentucky is an SEC battle, and here we've got a set of 3 pretty solid matchups as well, I think. I actually kind of like South Carolina, and I like the fact that their stock is down right now because of their very not inspiring performance against Old Dominion, and I think they're going to come out. I think they're actually going to shock some people. I think they're going to beat Kentucky on the road, and that's just blind faith in a Lenora Sellers absolute breakout game, and this team playing Beamer ball. Nick Harbor absolutely making things happen, forcing a couple turnovers, and Shane Beamer getting one of those Shane Beamer-esque victories against Kentucky, who's favored by 10 points. So I guess this would be my advice, to take South Carolina plus 10 in that one. Michigan State at Maryland is another one that intrigues me. Michigan State did not look very good. We talked about it. It was against FAU, who I forgot about that earlier in the video, but ended up picking Army. I just think Billy Edwards Jr. looked too good. This Maryland offense is rolling again. And Michigan State, I don't think is going to be able to do much to stop this offense. Their defense looked kind of good against FAU, but that is an FAU team that has struggled offensively. And I just didn't like how Childs looked either. He looked way too shaky, and you people are saying, yeah, he's really young, he needs time to develop. Well, that means he's not going to exactly thrive right now. So I like Maryland in that game at home. Charlotte at North Carolina is an interesting one here, only because North Carolina might be without, or they will be without, Max Johnson. He's a broken leg. He will definitely not play in this one. And Charlotte's a team that was really unhealthy last week, and their loss to James Madison. Biff Poggi saying that nearly half the starters were out. If they can get healthy, which I believe some of their guys are set to get healthy again, maybe they've got a shot in the dark here, but I'm still going to rock with North Carolina to get their second victory of the season. Toledo plays host to UMass. Toledo is my MAC champion pick, so I think they're going to do just fine against the Minutemen. The Minutemen falling short against Eastern Michigan at home. Last week, we've got a conference game that is in the non-conference because it was scheduled before Utah joined the Big 12. Baylor at Utah. Utah looked good. They looked good. It was against Southern Utah, but they still looked darn good. I think they're not going to miss a step, and Baylor's going to get a rude awakening early in the season. The pressure really on Dave Aranda. Utah obviously getting that win at Baylor last year. This one, Idaho at Wyoming. Did you watch those Vandals last week? They absolutely came out, nearly shocked Oregon. I like them. Wyoming looked horrible against Arizona State. Sadoba choked. Shout out to Jay Sauvel. I hope he figures it out at Wyoming, but I did ratio him on Twitter, so he might not think of that as sincere, but that's what happens. If you mess with the bull, you get the horns, and he learned that the hard way. But a tough loss in week 1 for them, and I think it could be another tough loss in week 2. Eastern Michigan at Washington. Washington should not have any issues here. Eastern Michigan, kind of a fun team, though. I like Chris Creighton. I like what he's doing with the beard this year, so shout out to him, but should be Washington. South Dakota could totally beat Wisconsin in this game, by the way. They're the number 6th ranked FCS team. They're pretty decent, and Wisconsin, a team that let Western Michigan hang around last week. I'm still going to rock with Wisconsin, but just keep an eye on that matchup. We've got Iowa State at Iowa. I know Iowa has absolutely owned Iowa State. The Iowa offense looked a little good towards the end of that game, but I wonder, with Kirk Ferentz back on the sideline, are we going to see that offense regress again? I think that's a genuine possibility, and if that happens, there's going to be some interesting conversations had around Iowa. I think Iowa State's going to clutch up and get one of their bigger wins under Matt Campbell, a road win against Iowa in this rivalry game. And I just really like Iowa State, and I think that they're a really good team, and I think they can come out and beat Iowa on the road. I've been high on them all offseason, so I'm going to rock with them in this game, and if it burns me, it burns me. Louisville hosting Jacksonville State. I would have thought about this one a little bit more if Jacksonville State either looked good or beat Coastal Carolina, but they got absolutely smashed, so there's no reason Louisville can't do that, especially after seeing how good Tyler Shuck looked last week. We've got UTSA on the road against Texas State. This is an awesome rivalry game. I'm loving Texas State money line in this one. I think that Texas State can come out and put up a statement victory over a UTSA team and Jeff Traylor that just has not been able to get over the hump, and I think they're going to struggle to do so. Texas State has all their chips at the center of the table. Jordan McCloud at quarterback. I think they're going to make plays, get a win. Ole Miss over Middle Tennessee, I think, is a surefire bet. Middle Tennessee led by Derek Mason. And Ole Miss, part of this soft, Charmin ultra soft start to their schedule. They're going to continue to take advantage of it. Now, Marshall at Virginia Tech. I am baffled by the fact that Virginia Tech is favored by 20.5 in this game. After how they looked last week against Vanderbilt, after the fact they lost to Marshall a couple years ago, and after the fact that they've been bad in the non-conference every season under Brent Pry. And so I'll still pick Virginia Tech, but I think Marshall can seriously push them to the limit here. 20.5 points is what they're giving them. Like, that's crazy to me. We've got Central Michigan at FIU. This one is an interesting one. Definitely slipping under the radar, mostly because it's Central Michigan and FIU. But I did think FIU played decently well for a half against Indiana. So a team to keep an eye on. I like Mike McIntyre. That's a tongue twister name, though. I like him a lot, and I think at home, why not? I think they can get this kind of victory. They had a couple nice wins last year. They got up to, I believe, 3 wins. So I think they can beat Central Michigan. Gardner-Webb at James Madison. James Madison, talk about a statement victory. They got on the road versus Charlotte, very emphatic, so I think they'll have no problems versus Gardner-Webb. East Carolina at Old Dominion. Old Dominion, they looked really good, and I think for that reason, I think Old Dominion going to beat East Carolina, get off to a fast start for the new year. We've got a South Alabama team reeling off of a home loss, traveling to play an Ohio team that looked pretty good against Syracuse. So for that reason, I'm going to take Ohio at home. I think they can beat South Alabama and get off to their first win of the season under Tim Albin. Florida A&M, a ranked FCS team now, clocking in, I believe, like 23rd or 24th. But Miami, my goodness, did you see what they did to Florida? They should not have any problems with Florida A&M. I look for them to dominate this game. This one could be a little more interesting. West Virginia coming off a loss to Penn State. They've got a big game in the backyard brawl on the horizon. Could they be overlooking a really good Albany team? Maybe. They could be. Still going to rock with West Virginia. I'm not picking a crazy upset, but could be reason for concern for Neil Brown, trying to get his boys ready to get up to play a team like that. Sam Houston at Central Florida is another one where I think the spread is way too big here. It's plus 22.5 for Sam Houston right now. And I thought KJ Jefferson looked shaky, and Sam Houston coming off of an emphatic road victory at Rice. They look pretty dang good, but give me Central Florida at home still to get the victory. And I know I've flirted with a lot of these upset picks, and I haven't pulled the trigger on a ton, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. We got San Jose State at Air Force. I think Calhoun squad looking pretty good despite the really low returning production. They're just a well-oiled machine. They shouldn't have any issues against Ken Niumatalolo's squad, but San Jose State did have an impressive performance last week against a good FCS school, coming out and putting together a really impressive fourth quarter to win. We got Tulsa and Arkansas State. Butch Jones' squad looked pretty shaky at times, but Tulsa is also just not very good, and they haven't been good for a while, so I do think Arkansas State can bounce back and get an impressive home victory. Coastal Carolina, look for Tim Beck's squad to continue the momentum. I mean, how impressive was that victory at Jacksonville State? So impressive. So impressed by this squad and expecting them to show up big. We got Northern Colorado at Colorado State. Give me the Rams at home. Despite the fact they got blanked at Texas, I still think it's a good team with good playmakers. They should come out and get this home victory. Georgia State, I also am trusting. They put up a solid fight versus Georgia Tech. A lot of volatility to be had there. They got a lot of transfer guys. Will they gel? I think against Chattanooga, they can start to do a little bit of that. Kennesaw State still seeking their first victory as an FBS school. I don't think it'll come here. I'm loving Michael Desmarais' squad, and I think Louisiana goes on the road and wins handily. We've got Buffalo at Missouri. Buffalo, a MAC school that was done pretty dirty by the portal this offseason. Missouri should not have any issues. Look for, hopefully, Luther Burden to put up some more numbers and start to build more of a Heisman or even Biletnikoff case, because Titaroa McMillan is over there racking up stats. Burden's going to have to throw his hat in the ring if he wants to stay in it. Texas Southern at Rice. Give me Rice to bounce back against an in-state school. Texas Southern, FCS school that I don't think is going to be the one that pulls off the upset. Now, Stanford against Cal Poly. Last season, Stanford lost to Sacramento State, an FCS school. Cal Poly not as good as Sacramento State. The Stanford team, I think, better than they were last year, and we saw that against TCU competing, so give me Stanford to win this home game. We've got South Florida at Alabama. It's one that definitely intrigues me when I'm looking at it on paper, but in reality, Alabama, there's just no scenario where they lose at home to this Alex Golesh squad. I'm aware that last season South Florida was able to keep it close, but there was a lot of other factors, including Tyler Buckner and weird stuff going on in Alabama at the time, and Alabama still ended up winning by a couple scores. So give me Alabama at home. Brian Denny's just a different animal. Florida shouldn't lose to Samford, but if this game's close, we could see Billy Napier getting fired before week 2 is even over. But I think Florida's going to win, and I think Florida got a chance to recover this season. People need to be careful how much they're sleeping on the Gators. And I know that sounds a little silly. A lot of people are selling Billy Napier down the river, sharpening their pitchforks, but just saying. Kansas at Illinois is the next one we got on here. I actually don't think the Jayhawks will have any problems at Illinois. I'm pretty confident these guys are going to win and cover. It's a 5-point spread right now. Illinois, Brett Bielema. It feels like Brett Bielema is starting to wear out his welcome. I think if they miss a bowl game again, that's going to be the vibe around Illinois football. ULM hosting UAB. If I recall correctly, ULM looked pretty good against Jackson State last week, but UAB, Jacob Zeno, I think can come into town and get a nice win over General Booty's squad. We've got Georgia Southern at Nevada. Now, this one is another one that's very interesting. Nevada has looked quite impressive. They're at home. Georgia Southern Nevada is a pick'em right now. I got a lot of faith in Georgia Southern. I think people are overrating Nevada now after initially underrating them, which is pretty funny. Southern Miss should get the home win here. Virginia at Wake Forest is interesting. We got Virginia with Anthony Calandria. They had an impressive win over Richmond, a team that is not to be taken lightly. And then we got a Wake Forest squad that beat North Carolina A&T. So both coming off of basically a warm-up FCS game. They're into conference play. I think Wake Forest and Dave Clawson's squad can get the home victory. Western Kentucky should defeat Eastern Kentucky with ease. LSU over Nicholls State is another one that I'm not anticipating anything crazy. We got a neutral site game, another headliner, Tennessee against NC State. Grayson McCall's team looked a little shaky against Western Carolina. I think they should look a lot better in this game, but I trust Nico and this Tennessee team way too much to pick against them. So I'm picking Tennessee in this one. We got Western Michigan at Ohio State. Don't think the Buckeyes will start as slow as they did last game, and I don't think Western Michigan will be able to start as good as they did against Wisconsin. So we're here in the home stretch, Colorado against Nebraska in Lincoln. This one is one of the ones people are looking forward to more than any other game. It's a chance for revenge for Matt Rule and company, and Nebraska has a quarterback this year, something they didn't have last year when Colorado torched them. So give me Nebraska to win this one and hand Colorado their first loss of the season. North Texas, a nice win at South Alabama. Look for them to start 2-0. Eric Morris's squad trying to have a strong season after last year. Vanderbilt needs to be careful. Riding too high after an upset victory. Alcorn State is a decent team from the SWAC. They got to be careful. I'm taking them, though. We got Houston at Oklahoma. Houston is a team that's going to come out fired up, trying to pull an upset. But as we learned last week, it's just not a very good Houston team. They got squashed by UNLV. Oklahoma should not have any issues. App State, the upset university, basically. Can they do it at Clemson? Can they do it again? A team that seems dysfunctional? I don't think so. Georgia makes a lot of teams look like that. The standard at Clemson clearly a little bit lower than it used to be, but I'm expecting a Clemson victory. TCU against Long Island should be fine. UTEP should get their first win under Scotty Walden against Southern Utah. Arizona, look for T-Mac to once again explode versus NAU. Maybe they'll pull him a little bit earlier this time, though, to keep him from getting banged up. This one, Boise State at Oregon. How about this matchup? The Ducks coming out slow against Idaho. Boise State looking pretty dang good. Ashton Jeanty looking good. Still think the Ducks are an excellent team and will get this home victory. We've got Texas Tech against Washington State, the Mike Leach Bowl. I actually think Texas Tech can come out and play really well and get a victory at Washington State. There is not going to be any defense played in this game. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be exactly as Mike Leach intended, so I'm so hyped for that one. Liberty at New Mexico State is going to be an interesting one on paper because it's the two teams from the CUSA title game last year, but when you think about it, this is just not the same New Mexico State team by any definition or stretch of the imagination. Liberty should cruise and win handedly. Mississippi State at Arizona State. How about them Sun Devils winning a big-time victory over Wyoming? Mississippi State playing Eastern Kentucky last week. A chance for his first Power Conference victory and first FBS win for Jeff Lebby as a head coach. Kenny Dillingham, though, he's been here. It's year 2. The Sun Devils look like they're rolling. They're healthy, which is the most important part. I think they can really step up and get a solid victory over Mississippi State. We got Oregon State at San Diego State is one of the final three here. The Beavs helping with this nightcap that's happening. And I do think Oregon State gets the win. Giovanni McCoy looked good. That offensive line looked really good. It was against FCS Idaho State, who's not very good. But the offensive line, I do think, is a big strength of this team. They ran for like over 300 yards last week. So they should do that against San Diego State. That should be the difference in the game. But don't sleep on this San Diego State team. Sean Lewis is a fantastic head coach, and he is turning things around very, very quickly from where they were last season. And then the last game we've got here, Utah State at USC. Give me the Trojans. They look so impressive. That defense looks so much more improved, which is going to come up big in a game like this where you're not going to have to be concerned about Utah State hanging around or giving you a test because your defense is going to step up, just crush them at the line of scrimmage, as they should at USC. So shout out to DeAnton Lynn and the work he's done there. But that is it. Every single Week 2 game picked. Sorry about my voice in this one. A little sick this week, but we're trying to get healthy before Saturday because that's what it's all about. But this is my official prediction for every single Week 2 game. We got a bunch of content coming out this week on shorts and all that stuff. So if you enjoyed this video, you watched it, you liked it, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff so you can stay up to date on all the things we're doing. And I will see you guys later this week.